Korean Conversation, 한국어 대화, Lesson 7, 제7과. Let's start this lesson off with the phrase 어느 나라 사람이에요? 어느 나라 사람이에요? Which means, what nationality are you? You might be asked the question, 어느 나라 사람이에요? Which literally means, what country person are you? Korea contains a relatively homogeneous population, so Koreans are often surprised when a person who looks non-Asian or of mixed origins appears before them. Some foreigners mistakenly believe Koreans to be rude for asking personal questions, but Koreans often ask personal questions to get to know someone better, not to offend someone. In general, Korean people are open and friendly, and sometimes asking personal questions is a way for Koreans to get to know someone on a more intimate level. Let's look at the next phrase, which is 연세가 어떻게 되세요? 연세가 어떻게 되세요? Which means, how old are you? The next phrase is 몇 살이에요? 몇 살이에요? It means, how old are you? In some countries, asking people's age is considered rude, especially if the person is an older woman. But in Korea, asking someone's age is a common practice. This is because Korean society is largely operated on showing respect towards someone who is older. So asking someone's age to determine whether to show extra courtesy is necessary. When speaking to someone who could potentially be older than you, it's a good idea to be very polite. So it would be best to use the honorific phrase 연세가 어떻게 되세요? To ask someone's age. However, if you are talking to a child or someone who is obviously younger or lower in status than you, it's okay to use the phrase 몇 살이에요? To ask someone's age. Let's move on to the next phrase, which is 결혼하셨어요? 결혼하셨어요? It means, are you married? The next phrase is 왜 결혼 안 했어요? 왜 결혼 안 했어요? It means, why aren't you married? Again, it may seem nosy for Korean people to ask your marital status, but it really isn't a malicious attempt to make you feel uncomfortable. It's just that Korean people are naturally curious people and want to genuinely get to know you better. The next phrase is 어떤 일을 하세요? 어떤 일을 하세요? Which means, what kind of work do you do? The next phrase is 댁이 어디십니까? 댁이 어디십니까? Which means, where is your house? The next is 집이 어디예요? 집이 어디예요? It means, where is your house? Korean people are status-conscious people, so knowing where someone lives and knowing the type of work someone does can help provide clues as to whether the person is of high or low status, without asking exactly how much the person makes. The phrase 댁이 어디십니까? is a more formal way of asking 집이 어디예요? Let's move on to a different phrase. This phrase is 그건 좀, which means that's a bit. The following phrase is 그건 사적인 일입니다. 그건 사적인 일입니다. It means that's personal. Nevertheless, you might find some Korean people's questions too personal for you. So some of the ways you can answer a personal question is by giving an indirect answer like 그건 좀, which means that's a bit. The phrase 그건 좀, that's a bit, does the double duty of allowing you to avoid answering a personal question and yet remain civil and polite towards another person. Most Korean people will take the hint and not press you further if you answer with 그건 좀, that's a bit, but there might be a case where someone will ask again. In that case, use the more forceful phrase 그건 사적인 일입니다, which literally means that's my personal business. Just remember that this phrase can sound hostile, so reserve it for individuals who can't take the hint. Let's move on to the next phrase. This phrase says 형제 있으세요? 형제 있으세요? It means, do you have siblings? In Korea, some people still go on a semi-blind date that is arranged beforehand by the matchmaker and is called 손보다. Generally, these kinds of dates are arranged by people who are looking for certain conditions or requirements in their mates, like income level, educational background, family background, etc., when going on these dates. People often ask each other very personal questions. So, some Korean people, especially those on these semi-blind arranged dates, will ask whether you have siblings. In Korea, the eldest child will often bear the responsibility for the family. So some people try to avoid marrying a person who might have to take on this responsibility in the future. However, it is sometimes the eldest, often the son, who will receive the family's fortune, if there is any, so being the eldest isn't necessarily always bad. Let's look at another phrase. This phrase is 이혼했어요? 이혼했어요? It means, are you divorced? The next phrase is 아이는 있으세요? 아이는 있으세요? It means, do you have children? Questions about children and divorce may be personal questions, but in a semi-blind arranged date, they are expected and not frowned upon. Therefore, it may depend on the situation as to what is a personal question or not. Let's move on to a different phrase. This phrase is 그건 좀 그러네요. 그건 좀 그러네요, which means that's a bit, you know. The next phrase is 글쎄요. 글쎄요. And means, well. And the next phrase is 몰라요. 몰라요, which means I don't know. The phrase 그건 좀 그러네요 means that's a bit, you know, is another great way to give a polite hint that the question was too personal for you to answer. If someone asks you why you're not married, another great way to answer that is the phrase 글쎄요, which allows you a way to avoid answering such a complicated and personal question. You can also use the phrase 몰라요, which literally means I don't know. But just remember that this phrase is slightly aggressive. So if you use it when you kind of want to dismiss someone's question. In other words, use it as a last resort. That's all the time we have for today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.